Welcome in. It's so great to have you with us today for another custom-tailored deep dive.
Yeah, we've got a really fascinating one lined up today.
We really do. Looking over the notes for what we are getting into today, I really have to hand it to you. You have a real talent for finding the most fascinating hidden corners of history.
It's true, the source material you sent over is just gold.
Totally. Today, we are looking at a slice of sports entertainment that is so incredibly bizarre, it almost feels like a surrealist work of fiction.
Right, but it is entirely real.
Completely real. We are diving deep into the very first top prize of New Japan Pro Wrestling, or NJPW.
Which is huge.
Huge. We are talking about a title officially known as the World Heavyweight Championship, but much more commonly referred to by wrestling historians as the Real World Championship.
It is a truly remarkable piece of history, especially when you step back and consider the sheer scale and the global phenomena that New Japan Pro Wrestling is today.
Right, they're massive now.
Exactly. We are essentially looking at the absolute ground floor of a massive organization. And what makes this so captivating for us to explore today is just how incredibly chaotic, almost improvised, that ground floor really was.
Improvised is the perfect word. I mean, chaotic almost feels like an understatement when you look at the timeline.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to hook you right away with just how absurd this championship's run was. So the Real World Championship existed for less than a single calendar year.
Less than a year.
Back in 1972, across its entire existence, it only ever had two champions.
Just two.
It only saw exactly one successful title defense.
Which is wild.
And wait, it gets better. The physical championship belt itself, it was a recycled piece of hardware from a completely different, completely unaffiliated wrestling promotion.
Which is a staggering detail when you think about the underlying business of professional wrestling.
Yeah, how does that even work?
Well, in this industry, championships are the ultimate symbols of an organization's legitimacy.
Right.
They are the narrative engine. So discovering that one of the most respected promotions on the planet started their lineage with a hand-me-down belt.
A literal hand-me-down.
Exactly. It really challenges our assumptions about how successful enterprises begin.
So our mission today is to extract the ultimate aha moments from this obscure, almost forgotten slice of history.
Let's do it.
We want to figure out how such a messy startup-style experiment actually fits into the grand legacy of a major wrestling promotion.
A great mission.
Okay, let's unpack this foundation first, because we need to go back to the very beginning.
Right, so we are situating ourselves in the year 1972.
1972.
NJPW is newly established. As a brand new entity trying to draw crowds and, secure television time, they obviously need a top heavyweight championship to build their events around.
Naturally, you need a prize.
You need a pinnacle of success for your roster to chase and for the fans to care about. But instead of commissioning a grand, expensive, new championship belt to signify a fresh start and a clear vision.
Which is what you'd expect.
Exactly. NJPW takes a completely unorthodox route. They simply bill a wrestler named Karl Gotch as their inaugural champion.
Hold on. They just declared him the champion.
Just declared it.
No inaugural tournament, no epic crowning moment to kickstart the company's legacy.
Nothing like that.
Yeah.
And if we look at the physical manifestation of that title, what's fascinating here is that NJPW didn't actually mint a new belt.
He didn't make a belt at all.
No. To represent this newly minted Real World Championship, they used an existing belt, or perhaps a replica of it, from the American Wrestling Alliance's AWA World Heavyweight Championship out of Ohio.
Out of Ohio.
Yes. And there's a very specific, crucial distinction to make here. This should not be confused with the much more famous AWA World Heavyweight Championship promoted by Vern Gagne up in Minnesota.
Right. The Minnesota one is the famous one.
Those are two entirely separate entities. This was the Ohio one.
Wait, Ohio? For a national Japanese promotion?
Yep.
How did they think the audience wouldn't notice they were just recycling an American regional belt? Was information just that siloed in 1972?
You really have to consider the era and the geographical disconnect. Information wasn't exactly globalized.
I guess there was no internet to just look it up.
Exactly. But there was a historical justification they used to try and make it work.
Oh.
Karl Gotch actually legitimately held that specific AWA Ohio championship years prior.
Really?
Yes, he held it from September 11th, 1962 to September 7th, 1964.
So almost a decade earlier.
Precisely. So by taking a physical belt from his past and presenting it as the top prize of this new Japanese promotion in 1972, NJPW was bizarrely retrofitting past glory from an entirely different continent to legitimize their brand new company in the present.
It's just such a wild leap of logic.
It really is.
When you think about it in everyday terms, it is exactly like deciding to start a brand new company out of your garage, immediately declaring yourself Employee of the Month.
Huh?
And to prove it, you just bring in an old, dusty bowling trophy you won at your last job 10 years ago and put it on your desk.
That is a perfect way to visualize it.
Look, I have a trophy, therefore this is a prestigious award.
It highlights the deeply improvisational nature of building something from nothing. In 1972, NJPW didn't have the time or perhaps the financial resources to build a legacy organically over years of storytelling.
They needed instant credibility.
Exactly. Carl Gotch had international respect, so they borrowed a piece of his resume and a defunct Ohio wrestling territory's hardware to create an illusion of prestige.
But building an illusion is one thing, maintaining it is another. Because the timeline of Gotch's reign makes absolutely no sense for the wrestling business.
No sense at all.
Carl Gotch is recognized as the inaugural champion, with his reign supposedly beginning no earlier than January 13th, 1972.
Right.
And then nothing happens. He just holds it.
He just holds it.
For months. All the way from January until October, there's not a single successful title defense on record for this supposedly prestigious top prize.
Which is commercial suicide in the territory days.
Completely.
For a brand new promotion trying to sell tickets in 1972 Tokyo, freezing your world title picture for 9 months by keeping it on Gotch without a single defense goes against every instinct of the industry.
Because you need the matches.
You rely on title defenses to generate friction, to drive the box office, to give the fans a reason to buy a ticket to the next show.
Exactly. A champion walking around with a prop but never putting it on the line is just a guy in a fancy jacket.
That's all it is.
He's just walking around with this borrowed trophy for 9 months. But here's where it gets really interesting. We finally hit October 1972, and the gears finally start turning.
The new Golden Series.
Yes, NJPW is running an event called the New Golden Series. The date is October 4th, 1972, and the location is Tokyo. On this night, Carl Gotch finally loses the championship.
Finally.
A wrestler named Antonio Inoki defeats Gotch to win the real world championship.
And the specific mechanics of how Inoki won that match are incredibly telling about the backstage politics and the delicate balancing of egos at the time.
Oh, totally. Because it wasn't a clean win, was it?
No. Antonio Inoki didn't win by a decisive pinfall or a submission in the center of the ring. He won the championship via countout.
A count-out for a world title change. That is incredibly rare.
Extremely rare.
Usually, a count-out or disqualification means the title doesn't change hands, precisely because it feels like a cheap finish. Why would they book their grand title change with such a murky conclusion?
It is all about protecting the aura of the talent. Carl Gotch was viewed with immense reverence. Having him lose cleanly might have been seen as damaging to his mystique.
Or Gotch just didn't want to lose cleanly.
Exactly. Perhaps Gotch himself was protective of his image. A countout allows the title to change hands, giving Inoki the championship, while giving Gotch an out.
So he wasn't technically overpowered.
Right, he was just caught outside the ring. And adding to the spectacle, and really trying to lend credibility to this murky finish, the special guest referee for this match was the legendary Lou Thesz.
Bringing in Lou Thesz as a referee is such a fascinating band-aid.
It's a great trick.
It's almost as if the promotion knew a count-out title change would feel cheap, so they draft in one of the most respected names in the history of the sport to stand in the ring and validate it.
Yep.
Look, Lou Thesz raised his hand, so it counts.
Precisely. They are using external prestige to prop up their own internal booking.
It's so smart, honestly.
It is. But the madness doesn't stop at the finish of the match. So Antonio Inoki is now the champion. He is only the second person to ever hold this title.
Right.
Yet, according to the timeline, his reign is the stuff of absolute trivia legend. Inoki holds the record for the shortest reign in the history of the Real World Championship. He held the title for a mere 6 days.
6 days. You spend 9 months building to a title change, you execute it with a convoluted count-out finish involving Lou Thesz, and you pull the plug in less than a week.
Less than a week.
But despite having this blink-and-you-miss-it reign, Inoki achieves something no one else in the history of this championship ever did.
What's that?
He is the only person to ever successfully defend it.
It is a massive historical irony. The guy with the 6-day reign is the only one who actually treated it like an active championship.
Because remember, Gotch held the title from January to October with 0 defenses.
0.
Inoki wins it on October 4th. Just 5 days later, on day 12 of the new Golden Series, which falls on October 9th, 1972, Inoki puts the Real World Championship on the line.
He actually defends it.
He defends it. And who does he secure this lone historical defense against? A wrestler with the incredible moniker of Red Pimpernel.
Red Pimpernel. You really have to pause on a name like that.
You really do, Red Pimpernel.
It stands out sharply because it contrasts so violently with the serious sport-like presentation we associate with terms like Real World Championship.
Right. It doesn't sound very sporting.
It reminds us of the carnival roots and the theatricality that has always been embedded in the industry. You have this title desperately trying to establish legitimate sporting prestige, and its only validated defense is against a guy named Red Pimpernel.
It feels like a fever dream. It is the single data point of success for the entire championship.
Just that one match.
So Inoki survives the challenge of the Red Pimpernel on October 9th, but his momentum hits a brick wall immediately.
The very next day,
October 10th, 1972, the new Golden Series rolls into Osaka. And the unthinkable happens. Karl Gotch defeats Antonio Inoki to win the title right back.
making Gotch the inaugural champion, the wrestler with the most reigns at a grand total of 2, and ultimately the final champion.
Gotch gets his second reign. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the story shifts from being a quirky piece of trivia into a bizarre study in organizational behavior.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because what happens after that October 10th match in Osaka is the most baffling part of this entire timeline. The Real World Championship was deactivated immediately. October 10th, 1972 is listed as the date it was abandoned.
Abandoned is the key word there. The documentation is entirely unequivocal on this point. It states the championship was abandoned without any formal announcement.
Just gone.
Let that sink in. There was no grand retirement ceremony in the ring. There was no storyline reason given to the ticket-buying public. There was no unification match with another belt to transfer the lineage.
Nothing.
They went to Osaka. Gotch won the belt back from Inoki, and then the title just vanished into the ether.
Yeah.
They packed up the recycled Ohio AWA belt and never spoke of it again as their top prize.
To just ghost your own world championship, I mean, could it have been a political issue backstage? You mentioned Gotch and Inoki had massive egos and highly protected auras. Is it possible the belt was dropped because they simply couldn't agree on who should look stronger long term?
That's a strong possibility.
Yeah. Or did the audience just completely reject the Ohio belt once they realized what it was?
Both are incredibly strong theories. And frankly, in the volatile world of 1970s wrestling promotions, it was likely a combination of factors. The audience might not have bought into the recycled prestige.
Yeah.
The locker room politics between Gotch and Inoki might have made booking the title a complete nightmare. But fundamentally, it speaks volumes about the chaotic, trial-and-error nature of startup ventures.
Absolutely.
Whether you are selling wrestling tickets or software, when you are building something from scratch, you don't always have the luxury of perfectly planned, long-term exit strategies for your experiments.
And the Real World Championship was clearly an experiment.
A deeply flawed one. They tried something borrowing Karl Gotch's old credibility to bypass the hard work of building their own, and for whatever internal reason, it collapsed.
It just didn't work.
But here's the organizational takeaway. When something isn't working, you don't throw a parade to announce you are pivoting. You just pivot.
Right.
You quietly drop the minimum viable product that failed, you absorb the financial or narrative loss, and you move your resources to the next iteration.
When you step back from the timeline, so what does this all mean for the company's trajectory?
Well, they dropped the Real World Championship on October 10th.
But they are still a wrestling promotion operating in Japan, which means they fundamentally still need a top prize. What came next? Did they just invent another title out of thin air?
They pivoted to something with a bit more structural integrity. The top spot in NJPW did not stay vacant. The progression shows that the Real World Championship was directly succeeded by the NWF Heavyweight Championship.
Okay.
That became the new focal point for the promotion.
NWF Heavyweight Championship. That already sounds like a much more formal, established name. So they traded up from the borrowed Ohio belt to a new focal point.
Trading up makes sense. But this raises an important question regarding how we view legacy. How do we reconcile this incredibly messy, single-defense, unceremoniously dumped championship with the pristine, highly revered image of New Japan Pro Wrestling today?
Because it's so different now.
Because when you look at the totality of their history, the contrast is simply staggering.
It really is night and day. Today, you look at their meticulously structured tier system. You have the IWGP Heavyweight and the IWGP Global Heavyweight titles serving as clear, undisputed pinnacles. You
Unquestionably.
have the never open weight division. You have established formal partnerships with massive global promotions like All Elite Wrestling. It is an intricate, highly polished, globally respected machine where lineages are treated with the utmost reverence.
Precisely. The modern iteration of the company tracks every single day of a title reign, every single defense with absolute precision. And I think this is the core takeaway for you as you absorb this deep dive.
What's that?
When you look at any massive, successful, highly complex organization, it is so easy to fall into the trap of assuming they emerged fully formed. We look at the polish of the present and assume the past was equally meticulous.
We assume they always knew exactly what they were doing.
Exactly. But history tells a much grittier story. This obscure wrestling title proves that even organizations with incredibly prestigious, complex modern histories often started with duct-tape solutions.
Hand-me-downs and duct tape.
They started with bartered trophies, improvised timelines, count-out finishes to protect fragile egos, and abandoned experiments that they simply swept under the rug without a word.
It honestly makes success feel a lot more attainable. You don't have to have a flawless blueprint on day one. Sometimes you just have to give Carl Gotch a belt from Ohio, see if the crowd buys it, and figure the rest out as you go.
It completely demystifies the process of building a legacy. In 1972, NJPW was just trying to survive the calendar year. The polished, internationally respected legacy came much, much later, built on the ashes of abandoned ideas like the Real World Championship.
All right, let's quickly recap this whirlwind history to make sure we've got all these amazing facts locked in.
Sounds good.
The Real World Championship, established in 1972, it featured exactly two men, Carl Gotch and Antonio Inoki. It saw a grand total of 3 reigns.
3 short reigns.
It utilized one borrowed belt from the AWA in Ohio. It witnessed exactly one successful title defense, courtesy of Antonio Inoki battling the famously named Red Pimpernel.
Never forget Red Pimpernel.
Never. And finally, on October 10, 1972, it disappeared in Osaka without a single formal announcement, completely erased to make way for the future.
It is a perfect micro-history of organizational chaos. But as we wrap up this analysis, I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over.
Lay it on us.
We talked extensively about how NJPW simply dropped the title without a word, opting for silence over explanation. Here is the question to consider. When an organization simply abandons its top prize without a single word of explanation, do they successfully erase a mistake from their history, or do they accidentally create a legendary mystery that people will be dissecting decades later?
Oh, that's good.
By trying to make us forget, do they actually guarantee that we would remember?
That is a fantastic question to chew on. Sometimes the things an organization tries hardest to hide become the very things people are most fascinated by. I know I am certainly fascinated by it. Thank you so much for bringing us such a uniquely incredible source today.
It was my pleasure.
This has been an absolute blast to unpack with you. We hope this deep dive gave you the exact insights you were looking for, pulling back the curtain on how messy history can really be. Until next time, keep exploring those weird corners of history, and we will be right here waiting to dive into the next one with you.